Crawdads, we don't know what a crawdad is. It's amazing how all these three almost completely different genres are put together in one really good book. Really good book. Hi everyone, this is Paul Loves Read, and as you know, in this channel, it's all about spreading the love and joy for literature, and we hope our little channel helps you find the right book for you. For today, we're going to share with you the amazing best-selling book, Where the Crawdads Sing, written by Delia Owens, published back in 2018. So yeah, ngayon ko pa lang siya nabasa, and I'm so glad I finally found the time to read this gorgeous book, this gorgeous story. I have absolutely no idea what this book is about, other than it's a bestseller, consistent bestseller for a number of months now. So I got curious, and also one of the people I follow highly recommended this, so I got into it finally. It's about a girl who grew up alone in the marshes of North Carolina, and she basically became an orphan, right? And she had to fend for herself and learn how to become herself as a girl, as a woman, living alone in this marshland, trying to survive alone, just with the nature around her. She's uneducated, she doesn't have money, she's alone. And basically, her survival instincts just kicked in and helped her out. The nature around her ultimately helped her into surviving and educating herself. So yeah, it's a coming-of-age story in a very unique setting, right? I don't think we have seen a book with this type of setting before, or even if we have, it's not a very common setting wherein it's about, the marshlands in the US, in North Carolina. And this is a real place, by the way, right? And it's a unique setting, it's a unique story, it's very different, right? A coming of age story is common. We see that all the time. But a coming of age story mixed in this, or put in this type of setting with a little of a romance story plus a murder mystery is kind of brilliant. So crawdads, we don't know what a crawdad is from where we are, right? It's not a common thing. So crawdads are basically crawfish. And they eat a lot of crawfish in the US. It's a common food, diba? And I think dito rin naman eh. But anyway, the term, the book title, Where the Crawdads Sing, apparently is some sort of a saying. They say that to mean something, to mean like, it will never happen, or it can only happen, it's an impossibility, parang ganon, because the crawdads don't sing. So according to common knowledge, a crawdad do not sing. But according to the author, and later maybe we can talk a little bit about the author, according to her, they actually do. They produce sound very, very faintly if you listen very, very intently, and if you are very, very quiet. So just a quick note about the author. She is a well-known nonfiction author, actually. So it's interesting that she wrote a fiction book about a marsh girl, about this type of setting. But she is, I would say, she's somewhat of an authority na rin in this kind of setting. Why? Because Delia Owens actually left the United States and her family back in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken, and went to Africa. And she chose an isolated life in Africa, and she lived there for a few decades, assimilated in the environment, got close with nature, and she became, one with nature. She's basically off the grid, kind of, and just tried to learn about the animals there, about the environment. And she wrote a lot of books about her stay in Africa. And then fast forward to 2018, she released this fiction book about a girl who grew up in isolation in the marshland and so on. So you kind of, there are similarities, diba? So it's interesting, actually. That's why I appreciated it all the more also. One of the reasons also that I got interested in this book, because first of all, I don't care much about the title, Where the Crawdads Sing. And not to say that it's a bad book title, it's just that I don't get it because I'm not from there. I don't understand, diba? I don't understand the saying. So it's not attractive to me, but the author is. Kia is her name, our protagonist's name here in the book. The story started when she was about 6 years old, mga ganyan, 6 or 7 years old. And not a spoiler kasi that's the first thing that you will read, right? When you start reading this, is that the story opens when she was 6 or 7 years old and her mother leaves them, the family. And that kind of imprinted in her mind. And then slowly, people around her, people close to her, her family, her brothers, her father, will eventually, the relationship will eventually become problematic down the road. And she would end up trying to survive on her own in the marshlands. She is not educated. She is looked down on by the townsfolk na parang, they call her the marsh girl, and they make fun of her, and she behaves and acts like a savage almost kasi wala siyang she doesn't have proper manners because where would she learn it? She doesn't bathe, she doesn't take care of herself, she just knows to survive. So she's very different in that sense, but I love her character. I love the protagonist because she is a complex character but not complicated. Okay, there is a difference. She's complex but not complicated. I see her as somebody who is bright with curiosity and bright with the thirst for life. She is that. That is her character. It just so happens that she's a kid alone trying to survive. And then, the interesting, and I mentioned earlier, it's a coming of age story. There's a romantic angle as well along the story, which is really very sweet and also heartbreaking in some point. And then there's also a murder mystery plot line, which again is very interesting. And I'm not going to say anything more on that, but it's amazing how all these three almost completely different genres are put together in one really good book. So, and it's all centered around Kia, the protagonist, who is this, she's like a bright, shining, protagonist. She's different, she's feisty, but she's also sweet and innocent and ignorant. So it's all a mix of all those things. So I thought it was very well written. I love the ending. It's such a journey. Her life here in the book is such a journey, but overall triumphant, I should say. I like the ending. I thought it was a good ending. I thought it was the right ending. It was not over the top. It was not over dramatic. It was right. It was the right ending. I think maybe the last point of it is there's a highlight on the marshland where she grows up. The marshlands is typically ignored by the townspeople, by the townsfolk, whatever you call them, and they view the marshland as something unnecessary, something that can be converted into something else, something that can be sold and bought by big companies and turned it into a commercial center, baka ganyan. But the author made a point to say that these marshlands are important because they provide they are important in the environment and for the environment. So there is that angle as well. Hindi siya it's not very obvious. It's not in your face kind of an environmental angle, diba? But it's in there. And it makes sense because the author, the author, it makes sense that she has a strong point of view when it comes to nature and environmentalism, right? So I appreciate that part as well. So in conclusion, it's a highly recommended book. It's a very well written story. Imagine having almost 3 different types of genres in one and succeeding, right? That's the amazing part of it. It's a coming of age story. It has a love story / romantic romance story, but it's also a murder mystery. So all those 3, and I'm not kidding, it is all those 3, and it succeeded. The author succeeded in doing that and not making it campy, not making it corny. It's actually really very touching and very believable and very sentimental almost, and she also wrote a very strong female lead in the form of Kia, the protagonist, right? She is, for me, she's like the embodiment of a strong female lead. Why? Because she managed to survive on her own, but also somehow keep her ignorance and her bright star intact all the way through, even though she had so many, naysayers around her. So many people are making fun of her, putting her down. Nobody believed her. She had no family and so on. But she maintained that her identity is so intact all the way through, all through the very end. So she's a very strong female character in that sense, and she really fought for that. So I loved how she is written, and yeah. So ultimately, it's a very, very touching, sometimes sad, but overall triumphant story. So this is a really good one. This is a really good one. So if you're into that, if you're in the mood for that, do give it a try. It's no wonder it's a bestseller book. So it's highly recommended.